it's incredibly difficult to get enough nutrients even if you're eating amazing, okay? So Max Greens is just an easy way to like get in significantly more nutrients from things like vegetables, live enzymes, things like that. So Max Greens, it's one of my favorites. There's a powder, this is a pill. I like the pills that they don't taste as bad. So who can tell me what the very first chiropractic adjustment helped to fix? The very first adjustment helped with someone's what?
Mine was sleep. That was the first night after my treatment.
Well, that is a good answer, and that's important. And that's actually one of the number one things I tell every single patient once you get your initial adjustments is really pay attention to things like how you sleep. So very good. But I mean like the very first adjustment in history. It was in 1895. There was a man named D.D. Palmer. He was a magnetic healer, and he did some other kind of wacky stuff. And there was a janitor in his building in Davenport, Iowa, that was expressing the story. And then he...
Terry.
Yes! So D.D. Palmer was listening to... Here, pass that, sir. Was listening to the story by a gentleman named Harvey Lillard. And he was in a weird, he was a kind of a janitor in his building. He was in a weird position and felt something kind of pop in his neck. And he became deaf out of one ear. Over 16 years. And so he's sharing the story with Dr. D.D. Palmer, and D.D. Palmer was looking at his neck. You can kind of see like a misalignment in that. He's like, well, I wonder if the misalignment caused the deafness, if I could restore it, if it would improve the deafness. And so I don't know how he adjusted, but the story is he adjusted that, and all of a sudden he could hear the hoofs from the horses on the street. So his hearing came back from his first adjustment. Now, the funny part of this story is D.D. Palmer thought that he found the cure for deafness. And so he was like talking about this, and so all these people came to him with deafness. And as the story goes, he didn't really help a lot more with deafness. But when he was finding misalignments, because all he was doing is analyzing the spine for misalignments and trying to correct those misalignments, is what happened was he noticed all these other things starting to improve. So this person's migraines would go away. This person's back pain would go away. This person's rheumatoid arthritis would improve. This person's digestive. This person's acid reflux. This person's sciatic. All these like random things were getting better. And so as he further analyzed like what was really going on with these corrections and these misalignments in the spine, is that it was reducing stress on the nerve system that was actually causing the ailment. And so by correcting that subluxation, the body was able to self-regulate and begin to heal. And so like that's how chiropractic really became what it is today. In 1895, the very first adjustment restored someone's hearing. So, okay, all right, we're going to jump back into the second half. Everybody give a big welcome back to Dr. Stan.
All right, are we learning? Okay,
Yeah.
very good. Okay, so top 5 destroying foods for our GI system. Biggest one, the evil word, gluten. Okay, so does anybody know what gluten is? Talked a little bit about it before. Anybody know what gluten is? It's a protein. Okay, so it's kind of the sticky protein that we use in pretty much 95% of everything that's being sold right now. Okay, so it keeps everything kind of together when you're doing the cooking process. Okay, but biggest thing with this, so it's found in things like wheat, rye, barley. Okay, now highly inflammatory, especially nowadays. So it's highly processed, highly refined. So it's much different than the gluten that we found like our ancestors 100 years ago. Through hybridization of growing these grains, they made them the growth process much quicker, much smaller grains, so they're much more highly inflammatory to our system in itself. Okay, so the same thing. Once those get into our blood system, we talk about in the gut, that starts to increase inflammation. That can lead into RA, lead into Hashimoto's, and just the whole system in itself will become just more inflamed. Okay, so I mean, good alternatives to these would be, instead of flour, using something like coconut flour, almond flour is really good. Different things we can use outside of just eating gluten all the time. Okay, that or just, I damaged oils. So be hard pressed to go to the store if you look at your any kind of food item and see vegetable oil not in it, or any kind of seed oil. Okay. So highly inflammatory. It causes something called dysbiosis. Does anybody know what dysbiosis is? It's a fancy word for a bacterial imbalance in the system. Okay, so every cell in our body is made up of a membrane that is essentially a fatty oil. Okay, if our body is full of these types of oils, that membrane is replaced with these seed oils. So that causes more and more inflammation to the system. And in some cases, it'll take anywhere from 3 to 6 months to cycle all that out of our cell membranes. So limiting these vegetable oils, these seed oils, is going to be massively beneficial to the overall GI system and just how our body functions and heals over time. Okay, so healthy alternatives to those: coconut oils, avocado oils. The biggest thing too is you just don't want, you don't want to cook with seed oils, because the higher temperature they get, the more toxins they become to the body. So you want to get something with higher yield of heat. So avocado oil is very, very good for cooking, frying with, outside of just olive oil. If you're going to use olive oil, use extra virgin olive oil that has a higher threshold for heat. Okay. Other things like tallow, animal fats are really, really good. Healthier organic butters and ghee, which is essentially another form of healthy fat. Okay. Artificial sweeteners and sugars. Okay, so sugars again are highly inflammatory to the system, which can cause any number of things like flare-ups of RA, flare-ups of Hashimoto's, flare-ups of any autoimmune diseases. The biggest thing with these it's going to essentially grow that bad bacteria. We have low stomach acid, we're not breaking those things down, so it's going to thin. The more sugar we have in our body can increase insulin resistance, so our pancreas isn't releasing enough digestive enzymes into the systems, it's being replaced by sugar. Okay. A lot of times too is that you'll see less sugar in items, but it's being replaced with sucralose, aspartame, saccharin, which are anywhere from 10 to 100 times sweeter than natural sugars. So you might be ingesting, as far as grams go or measurements go, you might be ingesting less sugar, but you're actually getting more information from it. So that's why if you have the sugar kick, or even like a negative feedback loop to where you have sugar, you're inflamed, you want to eat more sugar, and this loop goes on and on. Replace those with healthier sugars or fruits and vegetables to get that fix of sugar that you need. Okay. Alcohol. Okay, so alcohol in itself, which sucks, is that it inflames the system. Okay, so intestinal lining, it increases the permeability or the passing through the leaky gut. It opens up those gap junctions. Okay, so the biggest thing with this is it's really high in glyphosate, which glyphosate is the active ingredient in Roundup. Okay, there's a bunch of news things probably about 5 to 10 years ago. I can't remember what. Anyway, lots of lawsuits on Roundup to decrease the amounts of glyphosate, which is the pesticide that they spray on wheat, barley, grains. Okay, so higher we have in glyphosate, which a stat is I think 85% of everyone's urine samples in America has high levels of glyphosate. So any kind of wheat you're eating, any kind of gluten, oatmeal even, sprayed with a pesticide called glyphosate is going to be in our systems. Okay. Glyphosate is also tied to a neurotoxin as well, so it goes straight to passes the blood-brain barrier, stays in our brain. Okay, so we don't need in there. Now, like wine is a better alternative for alcohol. It's not sprayed with pesticides, so that's there's only if you can find a organic beer that's better than just regular beer. Which stinks. I did a lot of research trying to find better beers, but there's not much. Okay, so conventional meats. Now, we are what we eat. Okay, or better yet, we are what we eat, what we ate. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay. So what our cows, what our food is eating, contributes to the toxic load that we're going to be ingesting through their meat. Okay. biggest thing is you wanna eat organic meats, so find those organic meat options, it's gonna have less antibiotics in it. The biggest contributor to antibiotic growth is a hormone called recombinant bovine growth hormone. So what they do with that with dairy cows, they bring that in to increase lactation for feeding, but a lot of times it's been associated with up to a 50 to 60% increase in lameness, which is animals' ability to walk in pain and joint pain, right? So if you have increased lameness in cows, then they're going to give them more antibiotics so they feel better, right? But then that gets processed and you're eating at a significantly higher rate of antibiotics in your meat. So you want to stick to a organic meat, and that's going to decrease your overall load of antibiotics that's getting flooded into your system over time. Okay, so got healthy foods. So we have excellent supplements in here, which some of them will be on our list over here. So bone broth. Does anyone know what bone broth is? Bone broth, okay. So bone broth in itself. So we have bone broth protein and whey protein. They're both really good, okay? Whey protein is more into the dairy, okay? So it could be harder for us to digest the dairy products. Bone broth is going to be better for our mucosal lining. So what it does is it essentially coats and layers that single layer of our stomach and increases that protective layer when we ingest bone broth, okay? Prebiotics and probiotics. Does anybody know what a probiotic is? Anybody? Okay, so a probiotic is basically a good bacteria that we take to increase that bacterial presence inside of our stomach. Okay, a prebiotic is essentially a fiber that's going to then feed that probiotic that we're ingesting in our systems. So ideally, you want to take a pre and a probiotic at the same time, so you can have that fuel to then feed that good bacteria that you have in your system. Okay, now good prebiotic foods or probiotic foods, stuff like sauerkraut,
Sorry.
sauerkraut, any kind of fermented foods, okay? Even yogurts are good probiotics. Now I would rather you take a fermented food than a probiotic, but I understand sauerkraut, probably not the best for most people, right? Okay, because the fermentation process adds about 100 more strands of bacteria or healthy bacteria in the system than a probiotic. So a probiotic is usually derived from two different types of bacteria. It's called lactobacillus and then another long bacteria name, okay? So those are usually spun out for those two. So you're getting 2 to 3 strands in your probiotic, which are very good, especially if you need that extra bacteria. But the fermented foods in itself is gonna be better off. So take those about 10, 15 minutes before you have a meal, not to eat a lot of it, I'd say about a cup, okay, of a fermented food, and that's gonna enrich that bacterial load inside your stomach.
So you take you eat sauerkraut before you eat your meal?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Next thing is gonna be intermittent fasting, okay? Intermittent fasting is, I think, how everyone should live, okay? Our system is not built to eat 3-5 times a day and snack 5 times a day. Okay, so ideally we want to eat less food. Now, intermittent fasting, we have other seminars that in the past that cover this much more in depth. We're just going to kind of give you an aspect of it here. Okay, so if you want to get more information on that, I recommend going back to our metabolic burn seminar in the past. Okay, so major benefits of improving gut biome, because we're not ingesting food all day long. It has more time for our system to overcome that bacteria and produce better bacteria, or vice versa, okay? Decrease or increase the good or bad bacteria. So ideally you wanna do some kind of a fasting window between 16 hours of fasting and 8 hours of eating. Okay, so you can eat within that period. Same thing with that, still wanna have healthy choices when you're eating. Ideally, keto is the best pair with intermittent fasting. But better alternatives are 8-hour fasting window, 4-hour eating window. That's gonna give you the best benefits, or just meal a day, okay? One meal a day is gonna be the best. Yep, 4 hours of your eating window. Yeah. So it's gonna help to increase your overall metabolism. It's gonna give time for all that increase of bacteria or lack thereof bacteria to get itself out of the system without overloading it with snacks and foods all day. Okay. And there's also a really, really good book called Fast Like a Girl. It's gonna hit on specific hormone changes over time. So I would definitely recommend you looking that up. There's some really good videos, a really good book on it. Okay, SIBO diet. Now this is kind of counterintuitive to everything we've said. Now the biggest thing with SIBO, remember that's that increase of bacteria in the small intestine. Okay, now the major indication that you have SIBO is if you take a probiotic and you get more bloating, more gas. It's a major, because you're increasing that probiotic in the system. So if you already have an overload of good or bad bacteria, you're gonna get more bloating, more flatulence, more abdominal pain. Okay, and that's why it's so important to get some kind of GI test in the system so you can identify exactly what you have. Okay, whether it's leaky gut, or you have too much of overgrowth in your system itself. Okay, so good things, again, fasting so that you can get all that out of your system. It's gonna be one of the best things for a SIBO type diet. And then increasing bile salts, like you don't have a gallbladder, bile salts is gonna help break down those foods and then create better passage through your GI system. And then, sorry?
What are bile salts?
Bile salts, so if you don't have a gallbladder, you're not creating bile salts, which are an enzyme that is released from the liver to the gallbladder into the system that helps with breaking down digestive enzymes, bacteria.
It's not something we take.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can buy bile salts.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it naturally in any food?
Sorry?
Is it naturally in any food?
I do not believe so. Is it naturally in any foods, bile salts? No.
No.
No. Yeah, you have to take those. Hydrochloric HCl is also good to take. Apple cider vinegar, again, to increase the overall stomach acid. That's gonna help break down the foods. So that's gonna help breaking down the overgrowth bacteria that we have in our stomach in itself. Okay. 7-day food diary. Okay, so a food diary is awesome because you can experiment to see what's causing inflammation, what's not causing inflammation. So I always recommend that you at least chart what you're eating if you're having any kind of GI distress. You're charting what you're eating so you can specifically identify what foods are creating inflammation in the system. Okay? Because you might be eating something that you think is really healthy for you, like a probiotic, and then it's only increasing the overall stomach bacteria, and that's giving you more symptoms. Okay? So start charting your food, and then you'll be able to identify more in depth what you need to take in or get rid of. Okay? Then exercise. Okay? Exercise is great just for overall immune health. It helps influence what kind of biome, what kind of bacteria we have in our mucosal or our gut biome. And then it also increases the diversity of what we have inside of our system and our immune system overall. Okay, it helps to modulate the immune system and further balancing that gut health overall. And then it's just, you need to sweat. Sweat takes out toxins as well. So more toxins, more inflammation as well. Okay. And awesome. Very good. Dr. is going to come up and we're going to talk about some supplementation.
Okay, real quick, everybody stand up for me. Oh, orders so well. I just saw. Okay, so for the next 10 seconds, we're just going to now, if running hurts, don't do it, or if there's any other restrictions you have, but I want to get a little bit of movement because we're coming up on the end and we got to ramp up for energy because the more energy we have, the more we're going to learn and remember. So I'm going to have everybody run in place for 10 seconds. Ready, go. Go, 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 go. All right, stop. Okay, big breath in. All the way out. All the way in. All the way out. Okay, go ahead and sit down. So I'm gonna back up like 2 slides. So first off, if we are going to take action, I'm gonna highly encourage a couple things. One of them is to try to do a food diary. I know that it's hard to try to record all the things that we're eating, But again, if you're coming here to learn something, just have a good experience, or get discounts on supplements, that's awesome. But if you're here because you really want to change your health, I'm going to highly encourage you to do this. In fact, we have some resources. Don't we have a 7-day food diary thing as a resource?
Yes.
Yes, we'll make that available somehow for you guys, whether we put it online in our social media, or if you just want to pick it up sometime on your next visit, we'll do that. But I'm going to highly encourage you to do that. Dr. Staten hit on it perfectly, and when we're going through some metabolic consultations with some other patients, this is something that's huge. If you don't know what's causing you to feel bad because you're not tracking it, it's impossible to identify or to change. Okay? So understanding you ate these things, you feel this way, you ate these things, you felt that way, is really, really important. Now, there are other ways to do that that are a little bit less difficult, and there's some testing that we can identify, which I will kind of talk about, but I would encourage you, if you are wanting to make a change, take action. This is a great action step to take. Plus, it keeps you honest. Too often, people think they eat really good until they write a 7-day food diary, and they're like, damn, liar. Okay? So, and obviously we have a genetic requirement for movement. Okay? So that's just one of the things that is so important. I mean, this is not a seminar about exercise, but again, just as a reference point, it is so important for you as just a human being. We are designed to move. Too many of us have jobs where we don't move enough. And so that's why exercise is so important. You know, back in the day, hundreds of years ago, you didn't need to go to the gym because you just were constantly moving, getting the genetic requirement for movement. So, okay, I'm going to talk specifically about the 4 R's of healing. So this is where we're going to take all the information that we used and we're going to start to implement it into what action steps we can take to help to heal, and it happens in 4 steps. Okay, now I'm going to say this. If you follow this process and this protocol, you will heal. This is not crazy. I say this to patients all the time. It is not a matter of if you heal. Because so many people come in as their last resort because they've tried this and they tried that and they tried this and it's not working. It is not a matter of if you're going to heal. It's just a matter of when. Your body is designed to heal. And if you follow the right process and the right protocols, you're going to improve. To what extent you heal is between you and the Creator and how serious you get about it. I had a mentor that always used to say this: every disease is curable. Every disease is curable, but not every patient is. It's just a matter of how much you want to be better. I promise you, if you decided that the change was a priority, like you decided right now, like a line in the sand, like I want to, and this is important. This is like a writer-downer, guys. If you make a change or not is if you have a big enough why. If your why is big enough, you will overcome any how. So every obstacle that you've ever had in the past, time, motivation, energy, resources, every excuse you've ever had in your life to not be better in any aspect of your life can be corrected if you anchor to a big enough why. Why do you want to be better? Or why should you be better? And maybe it's not a want. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't want to go to the gym a lot. Okay? But there are reasons why I do. Does that make sense? It's not about a want, it's about, like, you should never make decisions based off of, like, your emotions. You should be making decisions based off of your commitments. If you just follow that, I am committed to doing these things, I'm committed to these relationships, I'm committed to this, then if you're making decisions based off of those, then you don't have to make these like, we're like, well, I feel like it, or I don't feel like it. No, you've already made the decision. You do it because of this. But you have to discover what this is. Who's ever had a situation where like a parent or a sibling like got really sick and it was like an incredible burden to the family? And I'm talking to a point where like it affected relationships. Has anybody ever seen that before? It's super sad. When my grandma got sick, it like tore apart my mom and her sisters. Like it was terrible. Like to watch that, especially as a child, you're watching them like fight and how it affects relationships and like the burden it put on my grandpa. Like I used to do this story specifically a lot in different seminars because there's like 2 paths you could take as you get older. One of them was my grandpa's path, and he could, I kid you not, he could beat me in a foot race until I was like 14 years old, and I was all state in 3 different sports. My grandma couldn't like get out of the car to come watch a game, she was so sick. And like she went down the medical path, which was she didn't feel good, she got drugs, she got addicted to painkillers. Her hip was just tore up, she had to go have a hip replacement. 4 surgeries later, she ends up dying because of the medical intervention. The #1 cause of death right now in our country is iatrogenesis. Who's ever heard of that? Iatrogenesis, death induced by a physician. Now, I'm not saying, don't take that wrong. I am not, as a chiropractor, saying medical doctors are killing people. This is not like Dr. Kevorkian or whatever. This is the idea that you have a health issue. You go to the medical system. They have some sort of intervention, a drug, a surgery. And I'm talking the right drug or the right surgery, but you or your loved one doesn't make it. You guys know when they recall medications? When do they do that? When enough people are hurt or killed. And even then, it's a financial decision. There was a movie, and I can't remember what movie it is, but they were talking about cars, like recalls. And so someone was going into, it might have been Fight Club, to be honest. I don't know. First rule about Fight Club. Okay. So he was going and assessing, like, if it's like an insurance recall on this car, right? So did this accident, was it a faulty car, like all those sorts of things. And then you basically put that into a formula to say, okay, so is paying out this amount of insurance claims, is it greater than the amount of money it would take us to do a recall? And it was simply just a decision on what's going to cost less. So do you just let people get hurt because the claims will be less than recall, or should we recall because it's going to cost more if we have to pay out claims? I mean, that's kind of how in the medical system it works too. Like, if the drugs are causing enough damage that people are noticing and there's enough payouts and people getting hurt and sued, like, then they'll make a change. But other than that, they're not making it. Because everybody knows when you watch a commercial of a medication, what's most of the commercial about? All the crazy side effects. Like, you have dry, itchy eyes, like, take this medication, but you might like bleed out your butt. Like, I'll deal with the dry, itchy eyes, thank you very much. Like, so, but you look at the list of side effects, and it's like crazy. Like, you might have like internal bleeding and this, and you might get cancer, you might get this, but there's like a beautiful little butterfly like floating in the background. But people still take it. I have no idea where I was going with that. Drugs are bad. Getting healthy is good. So again, like, understanding like there's those 2 directions. Okay? So you can make a decision to change, but you have to understand what your why is. And the why is typically outside of yourself. So I've seen that trauma happen in my family, and so I don't want that to happen to my family. I don't want to be a burden to my spouse. I don't want to be a burden to my kids. I don't want that to happen. And so I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to get adjusted. I'm going to make sure I'm taking my supplements and eating good and not eating bad and exercising, because I don't want that to happen. Plus, I feel like there's a calling. I actually believe that God called me to do this and to help people. And I can't do that if I'm not taking care of myself. So you have to understand what your why is. What did God put you on this planet for? And who is it for? To make these changes. So when it comes to the 4 R's of healing the gut, the first R is to remove. Everyone say remove. Remove. Remove the bad bacteria. Remove the interference. Remove the stresses. So yes, you can all clean up your nutrition and do all the things that Dr. Stan talked about, and your body has the potential to heal. But how many of you have been living like the standard American diet for a long time? Yeah. Who's ever had gluten before? Who eats bad sugar sometimes? Who's had artificial sweeteners sometimes? There's a study I read that 1 serving of diet anything can wipe out 50% of your good bacteria. The majority of people in America have an imbalance in their microbiome that's leading to weight gain. I mean, I'm talking about the small stuff. Like even just a little bit of inflammatory fat, like this is inflammation fat. That's because if you have an imbalance in your gut bacteria, or you have food sensitivities, or you're eating damaged oils. So you can work out like crazy, but if you have inflammation or damage in your microbiome, it is something as small as you have skin issues, or your skin looks old, or you have, gosh, I mean, even like a little bit of acne or age spots. Like you don't understand all the different potential symptoms that you might be experiencing that are linked to your gut. And the first thing we have to do is everything that Dr. Stan and Dr. Carly said. That's number one. But number two is we've got to remove all the bad critters in there. You've got to fix the imbalance. You have to remove. Now in the medical model, if you have a bunch of bad bacteria or bacterial infection, what do? Boom! They just drop a bomb, right? Antibiotic, bomb. You're killing all the bad and all the good. Now, short term, that might be good because you feel better because you're getting rid of the big, nasty infection. The problem is now you're just weaker and more susceptible to allow bad bacteria to grow. Every single one of you, if you've ever had an antibiotic, you have a massive disruption in your microbiome. I don't care if it was 50 years ago when you were a kid, you got it. The number one most overprescribed medication is antibiotics. And most things you get recommended for an antibiotic are viral. Like, who's ever heard of like antibiotics for ear infections? Yes? Yep, that's what they give, especially to kids. 85% of all ear infections are viral. And what does an antibiotic do for a virus? Besides kill your good bacteria and leave you susceptible to bad critters to grow. So if you've ever had an antibiotic or sugar or anything, I mean, you've got to make sure you're removing the bad bacteria. Not to mention yeast overgrowth or parasites. I tried to do a quick search on like how many of the what percentage of the population have like parasites. It's like upwards of like 25%. Crazy. I have some crazy stories on, well, I won't get into it because it's kind of gross. I had a patient who like shared some really interesting things and how she's been trying to detox, and she got adjusted, and she went home and like passed like 25 different like parasite ones. Now, what's crazy though is she'd been doing a lot of protocols, like stuff that we talked about, to try to force out the bad bacteria and the parasites or whatever. But she was doing all that stuff. But the one essential that she was missing was her nerve system communicating with her gut. So she came in because she had back issues. She was referred in, like a good patient would refer someone in, right? That has back issues instead of getting drugs coming into your CS. So when we found these subluxations, we found some issues like obviously the nerve system that were related to her gut function. So when she got adjusted, not only did her back pain go away, but when she came back the next day, it was like, she was like trying to like go through the story about how gross it was to have all these parasites come out of her. Okay? So let's make sure we're weakening the parasites so the body can overcome, okay? Now, this is not an antibiotic. This is gonna be specifically things that are safe for good bacteria, but bad for bad bacteria and bad for bad yeast, funguses, and parasites. So it's berberine, oregano, clove, and they safely terminate these unwanted toxins, but it's preserving the bad bacteria, okay? So we gotta remove. Number two is repair. Everyone say repair. 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 We gotta repair like the gut lining. So our gut is, especially if we've ever had bad oils or artificial sweeteners or antibiotics, those gut linings start to separate. Remember, they're only one cell layer thick. One cell layer thick. So any sort of NSAID, any sort of stress, any sort of antibiotic can thin that mucosal lining. And so we've got to repair the mucosal lining so we can help to heal and seal and protect that one cell layer thing. So we've got to repair that mucosal layer. Otherwise, that inflammation is going to continue to cause damage. And even if you're eating something healthy, but you don't have that mucosal lining, you're actually causing something good to be bad. Okay? Gotcha. So replace. So the third R is to replace. We've got to replace all the digestive enzymes. Does anybody know someone that does not have a gallbladder? Okay, if you know someone, or it is you, that does not have a gallbladder, you have to make sure you are taking something like this. One of the reasons why I like these supplements specifically is because they're whole food, so they're real. It's not a bunch of synthetic stuff. If you're buying your supplements from a box store like Walmart, you just stop it. Stop it. You've got to make sure you're getting a whole food, healthy, sourced, and it's got to be clean. No fillers, no preservatives. Because if you're just taking some run-of-the-mill supplement because you saw something on TV, you should be taking something because you want to do something healthy for yourself. You gotta be careful because if you're taking something that's synthetic or it's not real whole food, you could actually be causing more harm than good. So you gotta make sure you're taking a good whole food supplement. The Pure Path brand is one of the cleanest, one of the most bioavailable that you're gonna get. If you are taking something that's not bioavailable, like have you ever heard the saying, but the most expensive supplement that you buy is the one you don't absorb? Okay? Okay. So we've got to make sure we're replacing all the digestive enzymes so we can break the food down, we can absorb the nutrients. So breaking down carbohydrates, proteins, fat, dairy, gluten, fiber. Again, we got to make sure we're able to have that. So if you have a gallbladder or even like liver issues, you got to make sure you're giving this supplement specifically. And then reinoculate, which is number 4. So specifically the replenish and microbiome support. This is critical because we have to make sure we're rebuilding the good cells. Because if you do all the first stuff and you're not doing the last step, then you're just allowing the bad cells to maybe come back, the bad bacteria to come back. So we've got to re-put in all the good cells. Now, who's ever taken like a probiotic before? Okay, this is where I feel like people understand and have done before or have taken action is you're taking a probiotic. Now, there's some specific stuff that we need to talk about when it comes to probiotics. The first one is really the best kind of probiotic is a spore-based probiotic, okay? And it needs to have multiple strains, and you need to get a lot, okay? And I also typically recommend that you rotate every couple months, okay? So you've got to make sure you're getting a really high quality. But this is what people tend to have done before, which is awesome. But I'm going to tell you that you are absolutely wasting your time and your money if you're not doing the first 4. Because if you're just trying to pump up a bunch of good bacteria, but the bad bacteria is still in there, and you're eating sugar or bad oils, you're just wasting time and money. Understand this. Who's ever had a sugar craving before? This is like important. Let's take a second to talk about it. Sugar, everybody had a sugar craving? Do you guys know where that comes from? It's actually the bad bacteria communicating through your enteric nerve system, through your vagal nerve, to your brain, trying to tell you that you want sugar, but you don't want sugar, the bad bacteria want sugar. Because when they're in power, they want to stay in power. And so they literally communicate through your nervous system to tell your body that it wants sugar because sugar feeds the bad bacteria. Artificial sweeteners feed the bad bacteria. Gluten, glyphosate, like all the bad stuff that we're so exposed to feeds the bad environment. Okay, that's why we get cravings like that. But who's ever done like a really good nutrition protocol? Like I'm talking like real serious, and like their sugar cravings went away. Well, it's because the good bacteria started to win. And they were wanting the crap because they want the good. They want the prebiotics. They want the stuff that feeds the good bacteria. So we got to make sure that we're getting in an environment that's going to support the good guys because all those cravings will go away. It is amazing how easily it is to avoid the bad stuff in the sugar when the good bacteria is winning. Okay? So again, the 4 R's. Remove. One more time. Remove. Repair. Replace. Reinoculate. Good job. Well done. Okay, so this is the specific bundle that we have created. This is the digestive protocol. So if you have any symptoms that are related to all the stuff we talked about, whether it's autoimmune issues, skin issues, gut imbalances, food cravings, weight loss resistance, headaches. I mean, I'm talking about even like chronic joint pain. So many patients that they come in, they get amazing correction, but like, oh, it still kind of hurts. That is because your body is inflamed. And we've got to get the inflammation out of there. So this is how I approach every single, I'm going to call it like a season. Well, every 2 to 3 months we have a different theme, don't we? Okay, so last one was like the raising healthy families. The time before that was minimizing toxins or immune system. So I want you, this is how I do it. So I'm just going to tell you what I do, transparent, because I want you to do what I do. Because if you knew what I knew, then you do what I do. Yes or yes? Yes. Okay. So what I do is every time we have a new season, I focus on that aspect of my health. So when it comes to the heart season, I'm doing this amazing heart seminar and I'm studying my tail off and I'm learning all this sort of stuff. Guess what I do? All the stuff I tell you to do. Okay? So that season, I focus on that aspect of my health. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so when it comes to digestive time, guess what I do? I focus on my digestive health. So I remove critters, I do the replace, the replenish, the renoculate, like I do the 4 R's, because I want to make sure that I'm building a healthy microbiome so that my mood is correct. So when it comes to morning time and it's time to see you and adjust you, I want to be in a good mood. And you want me in a good mood, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm doing that for you guys, or for my family, okay? So I specifically try to create it to where each season I'm focusing on that aspect of my health. Like, does that just make sense? Because if you do that in every season, I don't really miss stuff. But I'm not doing something 24/7. I'm not doing I'm not always focusing on this or always focusing on this. I'm changing it. So I'm trying to create a broad like horizon. Make sense? Yes?
Yes.
So guess what I'm gonna encourage you guys to do? Yeah, for like the next 30 days, just get serious about your gut health. Like, imagine, what would be the downside to that? To just trying to take your health serious for 30 days, going through a little bit of a challenge, do your food diary, do your nutrition supplements, make sure you're getting adjusted regularly, doing your spinal rehab, eating good, maybe a little bit extra walking or exercise. Imagine what can happen in 30 days or 60 days. But you have to understand, like, is that what you want? Versus what would hold you back? We used to do this drill. I used to go to this camp transformation. They used to do this drill. And they would make you sit there, close your eyes, and focus on what the future would look like if you continued to live the way you're living in the bad sense. So you're trying to paint the picture of like, well, if I kept doing this, or if I kept putting this off, or if I kept eating bad, or I kept not exercising or coming up with excuses, if I kept neglecting my health or neglecting my relationships, if I didn't do the things I know I'm supposed to do, what would that look like in a year, or 5 years, or 10 years? And you really try to focus on all the negative possibilities. Like, this is a crazy, scary drill. Focus on how bad, like worst case scenario, how bad could it get? And you spend some time to really anchor to that emotional feeling. How bad could it get? And then, on the flip side, then you start to imagine, what if you did all the things you knew you were supposed to do? What if you did this? What if you did this? What if you did this? How incredible could that future be? And try to anchor to that and why you need to do those things. Like, that's a pretty amazing drill, and I suggest maybe you guys do that because it's a good motivator. But this is the specific thing that we set up as far as rebuilding the gut process. So normally, okay, so in events like this, we always do the biggest discounts possible. Okay, so it's a 20% discount. You don't get this any other time besides coming here. So good job coming. If you want to take control of your health, I would absolutely suggest that you just get the bundle. Okay. Dedicate yourself to the next 30 days or 60 days. If this is a 30-day supply, but make the decision to do something, to see something different in the next 36 days. I promise you will feel amazing. Okay, now, for those of you that do have some serious health issues and you want to get specific testing, we're brand new releasing our metabolics program, okay? So an adjustment is great, but an adjustment with an x-ray is a little better, yes or yes? Because if you're not x-raying, it's hard to see the specific areas of damage, and you can't re-x-ray because you can't measure it. So an x-ray with an adjustment is significantly better, yes or yes?
Yes.
Okay, so yes, going through that bundle is incredibly good, and the majority of you just would do great with it. But if you're someone like me, and you really want to see the what is going on, why do I need to do this, the motivating factor, because I know I need to eat better, but when I did some testing, and I saw what was going on, it was a pretty big motivator, and it changed, it like literally changed the way that I functioned over the next 30, 60 days, and I had some incredible results. I lost like 15 pounds, I got my 6-pack back, like it was incredible how much improvement there was, okay? So metabolics testing. So this is a GI effects test. So what this GI effects test is gonna look for is digestion absorption. If you're not breaking down food, if you're not absorbing food, I don't care how good your nutrition is or how many supplements you're taking, you're just not using it. Inflammation and immunology, this is what it's going to be testing for. So again, if you have constipation, diarrhea, bloating, heartburn, stomach acid, skin issues, acne, rosacea, eczema, psoriasis, dandruff even, like mood disorders, anxiety, depression, autoimmune issues, thyroid issues, rheumatoid arthritis issues, type 1 diabetes, vitamin deficiencies, fatigue, sleep issues, joint pain, urination issues, food intolerances, bad breath, unexplained weight gain or weight loss. These are the reasons why you need to do this test. This is what it's going to look for. Microbiome, obviously the imbalance, how bad, how good, what you need to do, what kind of bacteria is good or bad or overgrown, and then obviously it's going to identify pathogens and parasites. So again, if you have digestive issues, chronic fatigue issues, exhaustion, skin issues, these are symptoms of parasites or pathogens. Okay? And obviously this is kind of like what that test would look like. Now in your packet, it kind of goes through like what the pricing is of this. So I want you to understand, this is a pretty amazing test. And technically this is over a $760 test. Everyone say 760 bucks.
750 bucks.
Okay, that's a lot, but it's worth it. However, because we're doing this release and we're just starting this and you're at this seminar, you are going to be getting the biggest discount that we will do from here on out. And so technically this is going to be 494 bucks, down from 763. If you really are struggling with your health issues and you want actual true result, like what is going on in a very specific plan, this is what I'm going to really suggest that you go with, okay? Otherwise, for some of you, all you need is just the bundle. You just need to follow the GI system, okay? Now, I will say this. The number one most important aspect of our entire health is our nervous system. It controls every function. So again, if you have subluxation or damage in your spine and you're doing amazing with your supplements, exercise, and eating good, it still isn't going to create the health that you want. Because can you eat all organic and still get cancer?
Yes.
Can you exercise, look amazing, and still die early from heart disease or heart attack?
Yes.
Okay, so health is, again, it's not about how you look or how you feel. And yes, nutrition and exercise, all the things I talked about are important, but they support health. They do not control health. What controls health is your body's innate intelligence. Everyone say innate.
Innate.
That is that life energy. It's the intelligence that is inside of your body. Imagine you have 30 trillion cells, and they're all working like in coordination. How incredible is that intelligence? Like, if you don't believe in a creator, just look at how amazingly we're made. It's incredible. Okay? But that innate intelligence communicates through that nervous system, because if I cut all the nerves to the heart, what instantly happens to the heart? Doesn't matter how good your nutrition is. There's no more life energy to the heart. I'm out of time. I'm going to share his testimony versus going through the video. Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay. This is Austin. Everyone say hi, Austin.
Hi, Austin.
He can't hear you. This is a pretty cool story, and one of the reasons why I like to share this one is because, and I know that he's a giant kid, but he's a kid. And kids play a special, place in our heart. I mean, we have one of the largest pediatric practices in the country. We have 2 doctors that are dedicating their life to making sure that we're raising healthy families and taking care of kids and mamas and pregnant mamas, okay? Unlike any other practice that there is, even in the state, okay? This young man has a pretty amazing testimony. I want to share it with you because you have and this is not because I'm a brag about the office or how great the doctors are with adjusting. I want you to understand the power that made the body heals the body and happens no other way. And the things that you hear, say, or do can affect the lives of millions tomorrow. So I'm sharing this story with you for one reason. I want you to understand the power of the adjustment, and I want you to share the stories. Because that's how we're going to heal. That's how we're going to get people healthy. In fact, the only reason this kid has a testimony is because I had a patient that stepped in the gap and said, hey, you've got to go over and you got to see these guys. So this is Austin's story. He was early in high school, and he got his back injured playing football. Okay? And that's important to the story. A couple of years later, so he's in like middle high school, so sophomore, junior maybe, and he started getting some really bad tummy aches. And from this, he started having stool issues, bowel movement issues. He was starting to have mucus and loose stools and uncontrollable going to the bathroom. Imagine if you couldn't hold your bowels, what high school would be like. I mean, high school is pretty hard already, yes or yes? Imagine what his social life was, where he couldn't go out because he was afraid he was going to poop his pants. So, parents decide we've got to figure out what to do. They go to the doctor. Doctors diagnose him with ulcerative colitis, which is an incurable autoimmune disease. Incurable autoimmune disease, ulcerative colitis. By now, the symptoms are so bad that he can't go to school. He had to become homeschooled, and he couldn't play football, which is his passion, because he couldn't hold his bowels and he was bleeding out of his rectum, mucus, blood. And so the doctor said, you have an incurable autoimmune disease and you're gonna have to take drugs. And the medications that were prescribed were chemo pills. And if that doesn't work, you're gonna get your colon removed and you're gonna have a colostomy bag for the rest of your life. Imagine how scared they were. Okay? We go to church together, and there was a patient, middle friend, right, and says, hey, you've got to go see these chiropractors. I want you for 1 second to be in the parent's seat, and someone says, hey, I know that your kid has an autoimmune disease that's incurable, and you have to take medications and chemo drugs. I'm sure you've been to all the doctors, but you need to go see my chiropractor. What would your initial thought be? Why would he see a chiropractor? It's not his back, it's his digestive system. But sometimes God speaks to you. And they didn't want to take the drugs, and they definitely didn't want his colon removed. They didn't know what else to do, and they said, what can it hurt? I mean, this is a church thing. We're in church. Let's just go look. Let's just go see. So they come in. We assess his spine. We find subluxations in his lower back. Guess what happened, though? When he got hit and he hurt his back playing football. So it created a subluxation, and there's damage on the nerve system going into his colon. How was his colon working? It wasn't working. He had ulcerative colitis. The inflammation in the body, it wasn't healing. Like sores were just not healing. And instead of treating his symptoms, what we did, we started to remove the cause. We started to adjust the spine and to remove interference in that communication to his colon, and his body healed. It sounds like it's this amazing miracle, but it's pretty simple. The body is meant to heal, but there's interference. He had trauma to his spine. It was interfering with the nerve system going to the colon. The colon was shutting down. It was dying. And the medical doctors were treating the dying organ. What we did was remove the interference, because God needs no help. He needs no interference. And the body heals from above down, inside out. And so we started to adjust him. His body started to heal. He goes back to the doctor, and the doctor says, oh my gosh, we must have misdiagnosed you because your ulcerative colitis is gone. So he gets to play football his senior year. I'm pretty sure they win like the state title. He goes to Washington. If you know them, they're pretty good at football. And like now he's going on to college. He's doing all these amazing things because like he wasn't able, he didn't have to do chemo. He didn't have to get his colon removed. But his parents trusted, listened to their friend, came in, started getting adjusted, got to the root cause of the problem, his body heals. That is what happens when you apply the 5 essentials. Okay? So again, a pretty amazing testimony, and it's just, and you can see kind of, here's his initial x-ray. You saw this pelvic shift, how uneven it was, curvature in the lower back, damage in the nerve going to the colon. Here's his post x-ray. Now, obviously, as you get correction, get pressure on the nerve system, the body starts to heal. It just is what it is. That's what happens. So I'm going to close it with this, like guys, I really do appreciate you taking the time because it shows me how important your health is, and I really hope that some of this information really landed and you guys have good takeaways. I'm gonna again highly encourage you to take the time, take the energy, dedicate the next month or whatever to your digestive health. Follow the process. Do what the doctors talked about with the foods and the nutritions and following the advanced plan. Do the 7-day diary. Do the nutrition protocol. Do the 4 R's. If you want to do the testing, let's talk. Let's do the testing to figure out what we need to do specifically to correct these imbalances. And if you are a guest and you are not a patient, I'm going to highly encourage you to find out if there could be a subluxation affecting your nerve system that's limiting your body's potential to heal. Okay? So there should be a sheet of paper that's like a questionnaire, like a stress survey, maybe somewhere in there if you're a guest. All I want you to do is to fill that out. And we'll be able to schedule you. So I want you to think about this. If you went to the doctor, so this is kind of for the guests. So 2 seconds. You guys can write notes or look through this if you're trying to do your order forms for the supplements in the 4 R's or whatever. But as a guest, if you went to the medical doctor and they did full spine digital x-rays, nerve system evaluations, nerve system exams, thermal imaging to find out if there's a subluxation or pressure on the nerve going to your digestive system or causing your headaches or causing your sleep issues or your ADD or constipation or your food intolerances or acid reflux or depression, if there was a subluxation causing that and you went through a consultation report of findings with the neurologist in the hospital, what would that cost you? Thousands of dollars. And they don't even do that. In our office, normally it's around $300. to do a full spine evaluation, thermal imaging, scans, x-rays, consultations, to figure out if there's a subluxation affecting your body's ability to function to heal. When you come to an event like this, what we do just in appreciation is we reduce that fee to $37. Exams, x-rays, consultations, and a report of findings with recommendations just to see if there's something we can do to help you. If there's not, I'll tell you, I don't need you as a patient, okay? I want to help you if you need help though, okay? So take time, fill that out, $37, schedule your appointment. It covers your complete exam, x-rays, consultations, your report of findings, which is a 2-day process technically. If there is something we can do to help you, I will go through recommendations and we can go through things like insurance questions, how many visits, when we would do a progress check or re-exam, re-x-ray, what like costs would be, all that sort of stuff. We'll answer all those questions if you're accepted as a patient, okay? So if you have never been checked, make sure you're getting your spinal nervous system checked. If you've already done that and you're a patient, I'm talking to you to stay on track with your recommendations, okay? Okay? Or make sure you're taking action steps with your supplementation, your nutrition, your food diary, you name it. Questions? No? You know